Aloha! It's the 8th night of Hanukkah, and it's mostly been a really fun time. But I don't know, I'm feeling in a kind of weird mood tonight. I mean, weirder than usual. Play it, Sam! And while we are playing, the candles are burning low. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. One for each night, they shed a sweet light to remind us of days long ago. Aloha and welcome back to my channel. I'm Marilyn Maya, the baby boomer booktuber, or as I like to say, the oldest person on BookTube. It's not really true, but it's almost true. I'm going to do Friday reads today. And by the way, I want to thank Deana from Books Yada Yada for asking me to sing again. I'm not sure if anybody else enjoyed it, but I hope you did. Well, like I said, it's been a very weird month, and that is reflected in my reading. Yesterday I went to the library and I picked up some mood reads, and I also am doing some rereads, and I have just a bunch of books that I want to talk about. The first book I want to talk about is A Woman Alone. This is a new book by Nina Laurin, and she's the author of Girl Last Seen, which I haven't read. And it says, a house with the darkest of secrets, a woman who is the only one who knows. Now, I said I wasn't liking my psychological mysteries, but they're my go-to when I'm feeling down or I want to be distracted from life. And though I had a wonderful Hanukkah, there was some things that I'm going to go into later why I need this book. And I hope it's not going to have just predictable characters and a bad ending like some of the other books. Anyway, let me read you a little of the blurb. It's another bright sunny day in Ventura, Illinois, the sort of place where dreams come true and families can get a fresh start. Cecilia Holmes deserves it after the home invasion that shattered her previous life. Now everything seems perfect. Her high security smartphone, her doting husband, her sweet daughter. We know where this is going. Until she begins to feel spied upon. Her husband doesn't believe her, her neighbors ignore her, so when she discovers a shocking secret about the prior occupant of their house, she thinks that she has no one to turn to. And now Cecilia must face her fears alone. Now when I just read that and I heard Smart House, it brought back one of a recent book that I read, and I'll think of it later. But it's by the author of One by One, so it'll come to me because I have a very complicated relationship with that author. Okay, now my second book is We Are All the Same in the Dark. Now that reminds me of Benjamin Franklin said, all cats are gray in the dark, but I don't think that this is referring to that. This is also a psychological mystery, and it's a new book. It's been a decade since true Trumanelle Branson disappeared, leaving only a bloody handprint behind. Her pretty face still hangs like a watchful queen on the posters on the walls of the town's Baptist church, the police station, and the high school. They all promise the same thing: we will find you. Meanwhile, True's brother Wyatt lives as a pariah in the desolation of the old family house, cleared of wrongdoing by the police, but guilty in the eyes of his neighbors, and according to a new documentary about the crime. That was a little boring to me, but we'll see. We shall see when I do my haul. I'm a pretty basic, I don't want to say, okay, I'm a basic bitch. When I'm feeling down, I go to the same books over and over again. But this is a book, 84 Charing Crossroad, that I saw as a movie. And I was reading it, it's a very short book. It's only 95 pages. And I don't know how they made a 2-hour movie about it, but the minute I started reading it, I saw Anthony Hopkins' face, because he played the male bookseller, the London male bookseller who was working for Charing Crossroad. And what I liked about it so far is the way that the New York author, Helene Hanff, I'm not sure if this is an autobiography, if it's a memoir or not. I think it is. And the way she speaks, the way she kids around in the New York vernacular really spoke to me as a native Brooklynite New Yorker. It was very old-fashioned, but yet very real. And I really enjoyed this. And this is one of the favorite, one of a Book Olive's favorite books of all times. And I know I love the movie, and I'm enjoying the book very much. So I'm going to take this very slow. Okay, now, my next book, I have to explain. When I said this was a kind of weird month, I took an ultrasound on my legs to find out if I had this condition called PAD, which is peripheral artery disease. And it turned out I do have it. So I've been trying to start a semi-vegetarian diet. And let me tell you, I know why vegetarians are mostly skinny, because they got to stand up over a heavy pot of vegetable stock and make soups. And don't get me wrong, I like vegetables a lot. I really do. But all this chopping and cooking, and I'm tired. I also lost 5 pounds and I hardly even stopped. But that's another story. But I picked up the book, Dr. Dean Ornish's program for reversing heart disease. And I could swear, if I swore, that I read this book. I had it in the house, but I couldn't find it. But when I started reading it, and I almost read the whole book, I said, I don't think this is the same book, or else he must have added a lot of material to it. He did add a little material, or else I wasn't really reading it. But it turns out that he had a very hard time with mental health in his when he started medical school, and he had a breakdown, and his parents had to collect him and take him back to Dallas, Texas, which is very interesting to me, because he started with his reversing heart disease. He always wanted to be a doctor, and he started this program where he uses a lot of meditation and a lot of, what they used to call the woo-woo technique of calming yourself down. And when I read this, I mean, I have more respect for him than I ever did, and I'm going to give this another read, a slow read, because I want to live. I'm only 70. So that brings me to another book that I took out of the library over and over, and it's called The End of Heart Disease by Joel Fuhrman, MD. And it's, like I said, it's not a book that you read linearly, if that's a word. It's more of a book that you pick the chapters that speak to you and your particular problems, and you read them. And one thing that was interesting to me, it's amazing that I read so many books about diet, heart disease, and I didn't know that all oils contain saturated fat. So even if you use olive oil, it has a little bit of saturated fat in it. So if you pour it on, you're pouring on a lot of saturated fat. I did not know this. So I'm glad to have learned that. So I'm going to be a little bit more judicious in my use of olive oil. All right. Now the next book is also am reading very slowly. It's Hidden Child of the Holocaust, and I talked about it before. And it's written in the voice of a child. And Ruth and her family live in the south of France, and when the Nazis invade Paris, many Jews in France must go into hiding. And for some reason, I'm reading this, I'm putting it down and picking up other things, but I do intend to read this because I have a pretty big collection of French Holocaust literature, but none that are about the Catholic Church and the, I would say, more few people compared to other countries maybe that hid Jews and other people. So I do want to get to read this. My next book is a book that I bought in 1991 and I want to reread. It's called The Woman's Comfort Book by Jennifer Louden. And maybe I should mention, sorry, that the Hidden Child of the Holocaust is a true story written by Stacy Cretzmeyer. So I think this was the child and now she's an old lady. Now, The Woman's Comfort Book was a book I bought during a very hard time in my life, and it's by Jennifer Louden. And as I can see, the pages are really yellow. And if you can find this book in an old bookshop and you're in the need of self-care, I really recommend it. I love the little indexes she comes up with. If you feel this way, do this and go to this page. And she even goes into animals, healing your habitat, comfort clothing, and even self-pleasure. So I looked her up, and she's still giving seminars and doing work in the very important, I feel, self-care, being kind to yourself, kind of, I won't say business, but it's a very important part of getting well, mentally, physically, all kinds of ways. My last book is a buddy read, and I looked high and low for a buddy reader and could not find one who wants to read How Green Was My Valley. So I enlisted my good friend, well, he's my partner of 13 years, and he's behind both the computer and the lighting of his phone. And his name is Jackson, not Sam. And he agreed to read How Green Was My Valley with me. I don't know why I'm so anxious to read this book, but it says it has Welsh music in it. And it's a beautiful story, and it won the National Book Award in 1946. And I think at that time people really needed a beautiful, comforting book. And I liked, someone said on BookTube that it was one of their favorite books, and then I never heard of it again. So if you want to buddy read this with me, or just talk to me about it, I'd love it. So, my friends, during this wonderful time of Hanukkah and healing my body and spirit and soul, I'm glad you joined me. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, and hit the notification bell, like, share, and do all those good things. And I want to thank everybody for listening and watching. Until the next time we meet, aloha oi.